There are thoughts that are fleeting. They come and go without leaving a mark. But there are others that remain. And when they come from a chosen one of God, they not only remain, they transform into strength, movement, living energy. Thinking of someone for those who carry a spiritual purpose is never something ordinary. It's transmission. When a chosen one thinks deeply about another person, that thought doesn't stay only in the mind. It turns into a signal that crosses the invisible. It reaches emotional fields, touches the other person's spirit, awakens memories, feelings, longing, discomfort, or peace. Because that kind of thought carries truth, and everything that is true vibrates at a frequency the universe respects. You might think it's just longing. You might think you're stuck in the past or confused about the present. But what if it isn't that? What if that constant thought is a spiritual bridge between two destinies that still have something to reveal? It doesn't matter the distance, the time, the silence. When a chosen one thinks with the heart, the spiritual world hears and responds. This isn't a romantic or mystical experience. It's a real, profound, invisible, and intense dynamic. And maybe, just maybe, what you're feeling isn't weakness. It's a sign that your soul is still in conversation with another. Get ready. Because what happens from there goes far beyond what the eyes can see. 1. The thought creates an invisible spiritual bridge between the two. When a chosen one of God thinks about someone, something subtle, yet incredibly powerful, happens. An invisible bridge is formed between their heart and that of the person in question. This bond doesn't depend on words, physical presence, or any visible action. It happens in the spiritual realm, where the truth of intentions and the purity of feelings hold more value than any speech. What connects these two souls is an energetic link built upon the strength of purpose, the intensity of emotion, and the divine calling within the chosen one. This spiritual bridge begins to vibrate whenever the thought is charged with genuine intention. Whether it's love, longing, compassion, or intercession. And the most surprising thing is that this vibration is not confined to the mind of the chosen one. It reaches the spirit of the other person, even if they can't understand where the sudden feelings invading them are coming from. Many times the person feels an unexplainable warmth in the chest, a resurfacing memory, or a sudden urge to reach out, without realizing it is the effect of this bridge being activated. The chosen one, because of their connection with the divine, carries within an uncommon sensitivity. Their thoughts are not mere thoughts. They are like silent prayers that travel and touch places words cannot reach. The spiritual bridge that forms is sustained by faith, truth, and alignment. That's why when a chosen one thinks with pure intention, things change. This bridge can bring comfort, healing, or even awakening to the one who receives it. It's not control. It's not manipulation. It's pure connection. And a connection born of spirit never goes unnoticed in the invisible world. 2. The energy of the chosen one begins to influence the emotional state of the other person. One of the most impressive things that happens when a chosen one of God frequently thinks about someone is the influence their energy begins to exert on that person's emotions. This has nothing to do with control or manipulation, but with a rare kind of spiritual harmony that only occurs when a sincere heart is involved. The chosen one carries an inner strength that affects every environment they enter. And when that strength is directed towards someone, even from afar, it begins to shape the emotional field of that other person. The connection can be so intense that the person suddenly begins feeling things they don't understand. There might come a deep peace without apparent reason, or a restlessness that appears out of nowhere. They may feel the urge to cry, remember, or dream. All of that are reflections of what's being generated by the chosen one's constant thought. Because the energy they carry is alive. It's pulsating. It's as if their soul were softly sending messages to the other soul, even if neither of them is consciously aware of it. When the chosen one thinks with love, compassion, or genuine longing, they send out a vibrational field that reaches the other side. And that energy touches the other person's heart directly. This is so real that often the recipient starts behaving differently, becoming more sensitive, introspective, or drawn to seek what they once ignored. And all of this happens without a single word spoken. But there's a warning. If the chosen one thinks with resentment, anger, or despair, that energy also travels. And instead of peace, it can cause confusion or even weariness in the other person. That's why it's essential for the chosen one to be aware of this power. They need to understand that their energy can be a blessing or a burden, healing or noise. Thinking of someone with a heart at peace is an act of love. Thinking of someone in imbalance is like casting clouds into their field. This emotional influence is invisible but real, which is why the intention behind the thought must always be aligned with light. 3. Destiny begins to rearrange encounters and coincidences between you. When a chosen one of God thinks frequently and sincerely about someone, the world around them slowly begins to realign. What seems like coincidence to ordinary eyes is, in the spiritual realm, direction. Small situations begin to appear like reminders. The person's name shows up, a song plays, dreams are sent. None of this is by chance. It's destiny adjusting both paths. A constant thought charged with true emotion has the power to activate spiritual laws that transcend time and human logic. The chosen one, with their heightened sensitivity, can attract not only invisible responses, but also tangible manifestations of this connection. Life begins to present paths, situations, and synchronicities that bring two hearts closer together. Hearts that still have lessons to live, to heal, or to complete. The spiritual universe doesn't work in haste. It works with precision. As the chosen one continues thinking of that person with genuine love, faith, or even true longing, they emit a vibration that stirs the paths. It might lead to an unexpected encounter, a message through someone else, or a sudden impulse that makes the person remember, reach out, or reflect. These outward actions are the result of inner realignment. This reorganization of destiny doesn't necessarily mean a romantic return or a permanent union. Sometimes it's an opportunity to close cycles, to forgive, to find peace and release. In other cases, it is preparation for something new, a second chance that comes mature, more conscious. The truth is, what is moved by the clean energy of a chosen one never returns the same. It returns transformed, with purpose. And that's why it's so important for the chosen one to observe their feelings while thinking. The intention behind the thoughts carries weight in what destiny will weave. If there is forgiveness, there will be peace. If there is anger, there will be friction. If there is attachment, there will be delay. If there is free love, things will flow. Heaven hears what the heart whispers. And when the chosen one thinks with truth, destiny listens and acts. 4. The person begins to dream of or feel your presence in an unexplainable way. Another powerful spiritual effect of the chosen one's frequent thinking is the emergence of vivid dreams, intense memories, or an inexplicable sense of their presence. Even without direct contact, the person starts noticing signs, strange dreams featuring the chosen one, memories surfacing from nowhere, or feelings that defy explanation. It's as if their soul were softly calling out. This invisible presence isn't obsession or madness, it's real energetic connection. When the chosen one thinks deeply, especially at night during the transition between consciousness and spirit, their energy field expands, and that energy reaches the other person even as they sleep. Dreams, in this context, become messages from the soul, not always clear, but always deeply felt. Sometimes the person wakes up confused, stirred, or with the chosen one's name on their mind. They may not understand why, but carry the sense that something is happening between them. Even if they are distant physically or emotionally, their spirit has been touched. And no matter how much they try to rationalize it, this kind of presence is hard to ignore. There are cases where the person begins to dream repeatedly about the chosen one, as if the universe were trying to communicate something. Other times they feel sudden longing without reason, a tightness in the chest, or notice coincidences around them that remind them of the connection. All of this results from the spiritual presence generated by the chosen one's conscious, emotion-filled thoughts. But again, everything depends on intention. If the chosen one is vibrating in peace, the presence will be light, healing. If they are anxious or in pain, the energy will also arrive heavy, stirring unease. That's why the wisest course is to think with balance, to turn thought into prayer. When the chosen one acts that way, their presence becomes a blessing. And in the spiritual realm, that carries more power than any spoken word. 5. The spiritual frequency between the two begins to align. The mind of a chosen one doesn't just think, it emits signals. When they constantly think of someone, their spiritual frequency begins to align with that person's. It doesn't matter if they're far apart, no longer speaking, or in different phases of life. The vibrational field between them begins to create a silent, yet active harmony. This alignment doesn't depend on logic or chronological time. It's as if two radio stations slowly start tuning into the same song. What the chosen one feels, the other person somehow feels too. It can manifest as uneasiness, sudden nostalgia, or even an inexplicable desire to look within for answers. All of this without knowing exactly why. This phenomenon happens because everything in the spiritual realm responds to energy. When a chosen one vibrates in truth, in pure love, in freedom, that vibration doesn't remain contained within them. It expands, and if they frequently think of someone, that energy begins finding a direct path to the other heart. The soul recognizes the resonance, even if the mind still resists. Over time, this spiritual alignment can produce visible changes. The person might experience mood shifts, recurring memories, or noticeable changes in their own thoughts and feelings. It's as if the chosen one's vibration starts planting internal seeds within them. And if the soil is ready, those seeds sprout, bringing clarity, reconnection, or healing. But this process only happens in a healthy way when the vibration comes from a clean heart. Thinking of someone with anger, obsession, or neediness disrupts the frequency. Instead of alignment, it creates conflict, blockage, and spiritual noise. The chosen one must understand that the purer the intention behind the thought, the lighter and truer the alignment will be. So when you, the chosen one, feel that someone won't leave your mind, observe what you're emitting. Reflect. Am I thinking out of love or out of emptiness? Am I sending light or heaviness? The answer determines the quality of the connection. And remember, frequency doesn't lie. If it's spiritual, it will feel light. If it's emotionally toxic, it becomes dependency. Spiritual alignment is a subtle dance between two souls. It can unite, heal, or release, but it must never be forced. When it's real, it will be felt. And the most beautiful part is that often the person begins to change, even without knowing that the reason was you, the chosen one. Your vibration is a bridge, a healing, a presence. 6. The person's intuition begins to recognize you again. When a chosen one constantly thinks of someone, that person's intuition begins to awaken, even if they are distant, indifferent, or trying to rationalize their feelings. Their soul starts recognizing the subtle movement happening in the invisible. And that recognition doesn't come through logical thought, but through feeling. They sense something is happening, even without understanding it. Intuition is the language of the soul. And when the chosen one connects with sincere and pure intention, that language starts speaking louder in the other person. It might appear through dreams, chills, uneasiness, premonitions, or even through external signs like seeing the chosen one's name in unexpected places. None of this is coincidence. They are spiritual codes being activated. This activation happens because the thoughts of the chosen one carry directed energy. They're not just ordinary thoughts. They're living memories, purposeful longing, silent prayers. And that reaches the other person's spirit like a gentle breath. Even if they've moved on, a part of them feels that the connection still beats at some deep level. Over time, this sensitivity can translate into action. The person starts remembering more vividly, reflecting on old conversations, rethinking decisions, missing you without knowing why. All of this happens because their intuition is responding to the chosen one's steady vibration. What was once a memory becomes an inner stirring. But it's important to note, this only happens genuinely when the chosen one thinks without the intention to manipulate. If the thought carries pain or control, the other person's intuition might respond with resistance, fear, or even withdrawal. The soul recognizes truth before the mind does. And that's why the chosen one's energy must be light, clean, and surrendered. Intuition awakens where there is space, and the chosen one must respect that space, thinking with peace, with freedom, with gratitude for what once was. When that happens, the other person feels it, even if they don't say so, even if they don't respond. Something is being healed, something is being realigned. Because once intuition recognizes truth, it never forgets. So if you've been thinking about someone, trust, your presence is being felt. Maybe not through words, maybe not through actions, but through the soul. And that is stronger than any explanation. 7. Destiny begins to reconfigure the paths between you. When a chosen one of God thinks intensely of someone, destiny begins working behind the scenes. Almost imperceptibly, events start to align. Circumstances shift, signs appear, paths cross unexpectedly. It's not magic. It's active spirituality. The energy sent out from a heart connected to purpose doesn't just float in the air. It moves, influences, attracts. The universe doesn't respond only to words. It responds to the intensity of genuine feelings. When a chosen one thinks of someone with consistency, truth, and surrender, a sort of code is read in the spiritual world. That code begins to move things that once seemed still. Relationships, timelines, encounters. Everything starts being repositioned, even if no one notices at first. This reconfiguration doesn't always happen as the mind expects. Sometimes it's not about rekindling a connection, but ending it with peace. Other times, it's to initiate a new phase between two souls who lost each other along the way. The truth is, when the energy of a chosen one touches with sincerity, the flow of destiny shifts, always with purpose. At this stage, coincidences multiply. You think of the person, they appear in a dream. You feel longing. A song connected to them begins to play. You release them with love, and they return, not to repeat the cycle, but to close a chapter or begin a new one, now with awareness. That's spirituality in motion. It's essential to understand that destiny never forces. It invites. It creates possibilities. It opens doors. But free will still exists. People don't always accept the calling. Sometimes they resist. Sometimes they're not yet ready. But the energy has been sent. The seed has been planted. The universe has heard. And if it's meant to happen, it will, with ease. This spiritual reorganization also works within you. While destiny repositions the other, it repositions you too, preparing you, strengthening you, steering you away from distractions. You'll notice it in your own behavior. You start choosing better, becoming more sensitive to signs, more aware of what you want to keep close. You stop chasing and start trusting. And when that trust settles in, the cycle completes. Because it's in that state of balance that destiny can act freely, without interference from fear or anxiety. It works best in silence, in divine timing. A chosen one who understands this doesn't force outcomes. They pray, trust, and chosen one, be careful. This can become a habit. Thinking too much about a person may seem harmless at first. You believe you're simply feeling something strong, maybe longing, doubt, or even genuine affection. But when you, the chosen one, allow that thought to repeat every day, the mind begins to turn it into a cycle. And cycles, when they're not conscious, become invisible habits. A mental habit begins in silence. It forms every time you return to the same thought, the same name, the same memory. Even without realizing it, you're constructing a path within yourself where that person walks freely. The more you repeat, the deeper that path becomes. And when that happens, the thought doesn't come because you want it to. It comes because it has become automatic. For the chosen one, this has even greater impact. Your thoughts carry spiritual energy. They're not just memories, they're waves. Vibrations that travel, touch the other person's field, and return with a reaction. If you think with love, there's peace. If you think with attachment, there's blockage. But if you think with uncontrolled frequency, the energy becomes unstable, and that instability affects you. What starts as an innocent thought can turn into an emotional addiction. You begin to depend on that person's presence in your mind in order to feel connected to something. This drains your energy, exhausts your faith, and slowly shifts your focus away from your own journey. You move away from your center, from your spiritual axis, and start living more for the other than for yourself. This habit can also cloud your discernment. You start interpreting signs where there might only be nostalgia. You confuse emotion with direction, and that takes you further from clarity. Chosen ones are naturally sensitive, but they must stay watchful over what they feed, because what you feed your mind with shapes your reality. A recurring thought can end up stealing the space meant for intuition. The trap is subtle. You think you're simply feeling with your heart, but in reality, you're shaping a spiritual routine built on absence, and everything that is nourished from a place of lack returns as emotional scarcity. A chosen one must remember, not every bond was meant to last. Some were meant to awaken something. They served their purpose, and that's all. Turning this cycle into a habit can prevent you from seeing the new. It can make you reject genuine connections because you're tied to one that lives more in your mind than in reality. That's why care is essential. Thought is a portal, but it can also become a prison, and often the prisoner is the one who loves the most. Chosen one, think with wisdom, feel with presence, but never allow the past to become an emotional refuge. Love that turns into a mental habit can become resistance to growth. And growth is your calling. If you're going to think, let it be lightly. If you're going to feel, let it be freely. And if you're going to love, Let it be without losing yourself. Concluding this subject is like closing a cycle with awareness. Thinking of someone isn't a mistake, but turning it into a habit can drain your energy and distance you from your purpose. Chosen one, you were called to grow, not to imprison yourself in memories or connections that have already fulfilled their role. Tend to your mind as one tends to a sacred garden. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever felt this? Have you noticed a thought becoming a habit without realizing it? Share your experience. It may strengthen others who are also in this process of awakening. You are not alone on this journey.